Might as well ruin that mood now. It's so weird to just go, "What's up, guys?" And I can't do the spooky thing. I'm talking real spooky.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome to an episode 345 of Opinions. It's 345 Coast, or I'm JR, Coast Alex.
Hey.
Joining us this week, what one might say is a professional spooper. I don't know.
Yeah.
He's a spoopy guy. We haven't said spoopy much this year. We used to say spoopy a lot.
Yeah.
It's probably for the best. Making his triumphant return, a legend, literal living legend, in the OMV community, Mr. Brett Kelley.
Good evening,
the mercenary himself. I interrupted you.
It is okay.
I apologize. We set the tone. I'm feeling kind of spooky. Mm-hmm. It is a crisp October night.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I'm like drop tuning for this recording. I have
drop D?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, normally when I go scaring, like around this time of year, like I shred my vocal cords, so then I walk around sounding like Tom Waits for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
And I always want to record a blues video, like record a blues song.
Uh-huh.
But I can only sound like that for like 2 weeks at a time.
You should do karaoke with that.
I have. It's okay. Yeah.
Versus actually having a voice versus just being you gargled thumbtacks, which is one of your favorite terms.
Yeah.
Gargled thumbtacks. That is the most uncomfortable thing I've ever heard.
We have a coworker who does that voice all night.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, thank you.
I wince when near the tail end of the season. Me is amazing, but I wince just being like, oh, I can feel it.
There was a guide. You got to consult the guide. Yeah. Anyways, we're continuing. It is still we are getting toward the end of October.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's almost time for Christmas. You just skip Thanksgiving, go right to Christmas. Right? Is that how you're supposed to do it?
That's not how
the season
happens. You're not even allowed to say yet.
It's true. Yeah. You just said it though. But
So
did you actually say
chastising.
it?
Moving on.
Did anyone actually hear you say?
I heard no.
Or
I heard no such thing.
Santa Robot will come and kill us all.
It's true. Yeah. It's true. Voiced by John Goodman. But either way, let's talk about some spooky things.
Yes, please.
And it's going to be fun. Brett, you seem to be somewhat of an expert on the topic of Richard Gere. And
I have nowhere else to go.
His prophecies.
Good one.
There was a movie that came out a long time ago called The Mothman Prophecies.
Yes, sir.
And by a long time ago, I mean 2002.
Yep.
Was it only 2002?
It's according to Wikipedia, The Mothman Prophecies was a 2002 film.
Huh.
For the most part, it actually still holds up, too. It's not that bad a film.
I feel like it would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some, with graphics being
For
the way
some
they are
reason,
in
I thought it was earlier than that.
Yeah. But
it wouldn't have fit in being a 90s movie.
Yeah, that's true. It was in that weird...
With what the 90s were, that brief evolution.
The CGI in it is definitely in that early 2000s where Spawn, where the CGI is kind of cool because you've never seen it before, but then when you look back at it, you're like...
It's real obvious.
Yeah.
Occasionally, when the topic of cryptids comes up, everyone has their favorite, or they have to go, what's a cryptid?
True.
And Brett's go-to has usually been Mothman.
Yes, sir.
Brett's a big fan of that big old flying creep.
Mm-hmm. I actually drew him in my Inktober series this month.
For this year.
Yeah.
Month. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The 2018 one.
Yeah.
We'll get to that a bit more later on.
Sure.
We'll give a chat about that.
Yeah, I'm blowing the spot already. It's Brett, blow the spot, Kelley.
But Sasquatch is a cryptid.
Yes.
Chupacabra is a cryptid.
Loch Ness Monster.
Yep.
A lot of the characters that you see in the Perhapanauts.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. I pay attention. I know things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did Justin call them?
I don't know.
Zoologicals?
Yeah, that's a popular
like
thing.
That?
Yeah.
Well, there's cryptids in the cryptozoological.
Cryptozoology.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we kind of did it.
Yeah.
We made it.
We all got there at the same time.
One of the reasons why I kind of always thought they were cool, and I had a reignited passion back when I was living on the Cape.
Mm-hmm.
I visited Portland, Maine, and Portland, Maine is where the only museum of cryptozoology exists.
Really?
And it is in Portland proper. And it has it's held by a board, and I think a couple of people on the board members who run it are UFOologists and other people who dabble, or authors who write about cryptozoology and who do a lot of research, and they do a lot of stuff dealing with archaeology and things that are they are very well learned individuals who kind of embrace cryptozoology and kind of like that type of field of study with some level of interest. So, but yeah.
So that's the one cool thing in Maine. That's it.
No, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's really cool in Maine. If you like beer, there's a lot.
That's the one.
Stephen
cool
King's
thing
in Maine.
If you like, yeah.
I got my dog in Maine.
Portland is a fun place. They have a good arts. They have a really fun art school. They have a lot of it's like Northampton in a lot of ways, where there's a lot of cool, weird stuff, and you can find bars that are hidden around the city, and there's these restaurants that are built in churches and stuff, and it's a cool place to go if you just want to kick around. There's also a steam engine right outside the city too. It's almost like a Wild West town in Portland, where it's like there's downtown, and there's downtown, and then there's a bunch of new buildings that are made, and then there's just nothing, and then there's just there's a restaurant that has some really good duck fat, or poutine, specifically poutine. Duck fat is in poutine. But it's a really well known in Portland. I forget the name of it. Duck fat is the name of the restaurant. That's what it is. I made it. But if you look over to the right, it's almost like a Wild West town. There's just barren nothingness, and then you'll see a gigantic jet black steam engine just roll up, and it's a steampunk stream. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But that's really fun. But going back to the topic at hand, the Cryptozoological Museum is super fun, and there's they have a bunch of stuff that talks about local lore, like the Paloma, which is the regional cryptid in that area, which is an ancient Indian or Native American spirit of the mountains, and its creature described as having a human's head, but the head of a moose, and it has an eagle's wings. And it's one of those things where there are reports of it being sighted in the mountains a long time ago during the settlements, and then of course every couple years there's a couple brash of sightings and reports and stuff like that. And it is actually so well known that there's a brewery out of Portland called Baxter Brewing who has a Paloma beer, Paloma IPA, I believe, or a Paloma ale, Paloma Pale Ale, I think. But yeah, that's a whole thing. But that's one of the segments of the museum, and they talk about mermaids and chupacabra specifically. But one of the claim to fames is that a couple of the board members or directors of the museum actually worked with the people who made the Mothman prophecies. Actually, so they did a lot of they provided a lot of research, and kind of they had a lot of field notes and stuff like that. Including some reports that were pertinent during the research during Point Pleasant back when the Mothman sightings were occurring. So yeah, it's a cool, fun place. If you ever the people you meet that work it are really fun and kooky, and they have also they can talk your ear off about this stuff for more than I can. But it's it's a super fun place if you ever find yourself in Portland and want to check out some weird stuff. And they have a pretty good comic shop there too.
There's the part of me that wants to play the same game that I do with the ghost hunters.
Sure, yeah.
The people that have the TV shows, we hunt ghosts, and I go, you ain't never found shit, you suck, get off my TV.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, yo, ghosts are probably real.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And so with that, I'd have to fight myself to accept it. Meanwhile, be like, yeah, but there's no real evidence, right? But then be like, no, I'm here to have fun and just go with it.
Yeah, exactly. That's really what it at least I think that's what a lot of people who research it there's a belief, but it's also this is a hobby. This is something that I enjoy. It's just something to kind of focus and do research on just to see if it exists. One of the reasons why I like Mothman is because the level of intricacy and sightings. It's just a very unique occurrence that happened during Point Pleasant, West Virginia, in I want to say October, November of 1966 is when it first started, and the whole Mothman legend revolves around 4 major sightings that happened within 2 or 3 weeks of each other, and it was all describing this creature that nobody had ever seen before. It was described as having a 10-foot wingspan, 7 feet tall, having a high-pitched squeaking voice, almost insect-like. And the first sighting of it officially was it was sought by in November 12th of 1966 by 5 gravediggers who were literally just doing their job, and they saw this creature, as I described, very lowly flying across, and it almost like skirts over their heads according to their reports, and then kind of vanishes from sight. And that was like the first one, but the one that went down as like one of the primary ones that like made it in the local papers, and it was involved the police too. It was that there were 4 people who saw it basically around an area. Now that I'm getting into the meat and bones of it, this is going to go in a lot of weird places,
right?
And I'm going to try and like because there's a lot of conflicting stories, and I'm just getting to the. I'll try and keep it to the good stuff. But
I'm
you know
ready
me,
for it.
I tumble down these rabbit holes. But so actually, I can say the nerd thing about is that the Mothman. Another reason why I like Mothman is because Mothman actually its name came from nerd roots, because Mothman was named because during one of the reported sightings.
Was there a comic book? Is there a Mothman comic book?
No, but there's a quote. There's a quote from an eyewitness who literally said, I believe it was in the Angra.
He was a man who looked like a bat. He was a man, Batman.
It actually, the sighting. Oh yeah, I thought I had it written down. But essentially, the writing is that someone goes, "Yeah, there's Batman on my roof. He just took off and flew off into the night." That was an actual note. And then at the time, Mothman was appearing in the Batman comic books during 1966, apparently, and that name
Killer
stuck.
Moth.
Yeah, Killer Moth.
Yeah.
So the Mothman became the name, which is nuts. But yeah, let me go. So it's all your nerd fans.
So when do we get like the evolution of Mothman and he turns into Rexus?
Not sure. Well, actually, that'll probably be around a year later, because one of the things about the sightings too is that
Like a year from now, because
no, not from a year from the first sighting.
Is gross.
He is gross.
Have you seen Rexus?
Nope.
Killer Moth like somehow mutates in the Batman comics and becomes this like hideously like almost like Cronenberg-esque like creature.
Gross.
Yeah, it's gross.
I fell off the boat, but I can come back on here. So essentially, Mothman is known for being around a specific area in Point Pleasant known as the TNT area, which is a marshy swamplands, and it was actually the site of World War II weapons manufacturing. So in the area, it was used in World War II. Not a lot of personal protective equipment was being used, and a lot of chemicals were being used to build very lethal weapons that were being shipped out, and no one was really overseeing that at all. So there are these places where all these bunkers where there are
OSHA didn't really care.
No,
it wasn't a thing yet.
Exactly. And later on, like the EPA came in, and like there was like tainted. A lot of like reports came out that the water table had been completely polluted with like chemicals and all this stuff. But one of the things about this area is because it was so spooky, and there's these empty bunkers that were left out, like because once when World War II ended, like nobody shut everything down, everyone just kind of upped and walked away. So ostensibly there were still technically little bunkers called igloos that are out in the area that could possibly house materials, but it's very dark and spooky, very catacomb-like. And this is where Mothman was originally sighted by 4 people, 2 couples, and they were just hanging out, just partying, because we're going where all the punk kids go in a podunk town. Well,
so he's only seen at night, right?
Yes, most of the sightings are at night, except for
How often do you see moths during the day?
Yeah,
that's fair. Yeah,
but also
to fly into the entire sun.
That's where I'll get all the details out. I'm just trying to go through.
So I was thinking, so the Gravediggers.
Yeah. That actually happened around just around nightfall, but it was around like it was closer to nightfall, but it was still like pretty sight worthy. Like you could see it. Like it wasn't pitch night yet.
I have to like get it through my head what time this is. Like what like the level of year.
Sure.
Because there's no reason like in the 60s to have to dig graves like overnight.
Yeah,
because no one's gonna like hide bodies. It's not like in the Middle Ages when when they get dug at midnight.
Right, but it's also like Point Pleasant. I called it a podunk town. I redact that. That's a little bit of a mean term, but it's an old traditional town. Of a couple thousand, but essentially, go ahead.
Still on these Gravediggers though.
Yeah,
like do they do the job all sober? Or like, do they,
it's a good call.
If it's towards dusk, like happy hour has come and gone.
Yep.
Maybe it's your second job.
Yep.
Maybe they've tipped back a few. If you're a Gravedigger, would you
do it sober?
Would you crack?
Yep. Actually, I feel bad because one of the other things, like one of the other ones, involves a dog that was disappeared, and essentially it was on November 14th. Newell Partridge noticed a pair of he was a farmhand resident transplant from outside of town, but ran a farm, and on November 14th, as around sunset, I believe. He noticed a pair of glowing red eyes on a figure perched on a nearby tree, and that's one of the major identifying factors of the Mothman, is that he has deep red glowing eyes. Is actually one of my favorite documentaries about Mothman are Eyes of the Mothman. It used to be on Netflix. I'm sure you can track it down, but it's pretty amazing. It's a long read, but in this one, Newell Partridge noticed a pair of glowing red eyes, like I said, and his dog Bandit, a German Shepherd, took off after it and disappeared. And once when he saw the Mothman kind of flew towards it, and he ran inside to get his shotgun, I believe. And then at this point, the German Shepherd took off and was never seen again. But then the third official sighting was on November 15th, so the next day over.
Oh wait, did I make you skip over the partying kids?
A little bit, but that's okay. The partying kids were two couples. They were driving around the TNT area.
Were they together or just like two separate couples?
Nope, they were all in the same car. They were two, just kind of a double date type of thing. Just going out partying near like where all the cool kids hang out. It's kind of where all the youth would go to kind of rebel and drink and smoke and all that stuff.
Do some graffiti, light some fires.
Yeah, listen to the radio, smoke some cigarettes and stuff like that.
And make out.
Yeah, exactly. It was their version of it was their version of Make Out Hill essentially, but in a carcinogen-laced swampland.
I'm still thinking of hanging out in these bunkers.
But
the first
thing, these grave diggers.
The first thing I think of with the bunkers is like just how much trash gets left behind, and how much graffiti you're gonna make, and
but but what ends up happening is that they see Mothman, and then Mothman proceeds. They're in their car, and they drive by this creature that fits the description that we're talking about, and it's lying on the ground, and it's just kind of it notices them, and the eyes pop up in front of them, and then they turn around and they drive away because they don't know what to make of it, and they're really scared. They hit miles of 100. They hit speeds of 100 miles an hour, and the couple in behind are seeing it, and it's keeping up with them, like it's flying after them, and it's scraping the top of the car, and they are so freaked out by it that they leave. And then they were probably partying a little bit. They waited and sobered up a little bit, and they went, "Was what we saw was really real?" And they weren't sure, so they went back and saw it again. Then they drove back into town, went down to the local sheriff's office, reported it to a local sheriff, and they kind of went to go track it down, and then it was nowhere to be found until it was then reported the site again with the dog, with another person entirely, same description. It's reported to have a very inquisitive nature, where it kind of looks humanoid, where it looks like a man but with the wings, like you've probably seen the illustrations. But the eyes are always sunken in near the chest cavity, so it almost looks like an owl in some ways. And
there's been some images where like it almost doesn't have a neck.
Yeah.
Okay.
And a lot of people do think that it could very well have been an owl. However, a lot of the encounters. Sorry, I'm trying to make sure I'm trying to be cost effective with my time and efficient with the data, because I could pontificate, like I could go on and on. But essentially, those are like a couple examples of like the big ones of like the encounters, and essentially.
So at that time,
yes,
we didn't have internet.
No,
so no one's gonna like go online and talk about it right away.
Yes,
the entire town isn't gonna see their posts right away.
Yes.
So like, would Farmer Dude have seen like a newspaper thing about it?
I don't think he would have at that point.
Yeah.
And actually another big thing about like the way the kids reported it is that they were all very the thing about the Point Pleasant sightings and experiences that took place over the year of this happening, because the first experiences happened, like I said, in October, November of 1966, and didn't stop until the collapse of a bridge in December of 1967, which means that there were these sightings and occurrences happening over the course of over a year of happening in this little town, in which is of like religious, God-fearing people. And that's one of the big draws about these stories, is that it's not, some person just being like, oh, I saw a big creature out in the woods. There are people that were, people 50, 60, 70 years old, 40 years old, hardworking blue-collar folk that had never seen anything, never thought about seeing anything, and most of the people were afraid to report these things because, and essentially with the 4 teenagers I mentioned, when they went to the police station, the police officers separated them all, took down a separate statement, and they all described the exact same thing to a T for the most part. As
close as you're gonna get.
Exactly. Thank you. So like that kind of set off the whole thing, and then there were 2 other instances that had occurred. One in particular that happened at a farmhouse once more, of a mother and a child were visiting a friend, and they noticed the Mothman sitting like on the porch of this building. Once again, it was at night, and the Mothman was inquisitive in nature. They see it. The Mothman, the creature, notices the woman who's carrying a 3-month-old child.
Yeah.
To visit her friends. She gets so startled by the sight of this thing, she drops her child on the ground and nearly crushes it.
Whoops.
She then regains her composure, picks up her child, runs into the house, and this is one of the more terrifying recounts, is that she makes it into the house, and her friend is freaking out too.
Yeah.
They're on the porch, they call the police, and they're looking out the windows, and they're like, there's about as close to it as you and I are. They're looking at it, and the thing is just, with these red eyes, it's just pacing around the porch, just looking in the windows, being very inquisitive. It's almost as if it's trying to figure out who they are, being like, what's this? What do you guys got in there? You guys got pogs? What's going on? Yeah. So he's like, this was like a 15-minute experience. Like, it wasn't just like a 2-3 seconds. It was literally like a full episode. And once when the cops showed up, like the noise must have scattered it off and it was gone. But one of the other big things about this is that a lot of people,
like the fact that she dropped her infant, got glazed over a little bit.
That's
the
not
whole like, oh god, this thing's outside. I also almost killed my child.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's true.
Imagine like what would you have to see to just drop whatever it is that you're carrying,
including your child.
Yeah.
What would it take for you to drop your phone?
A lot.
You're walking around looking.
Probably a giant man that's a moth.
Yep.
Just like you come into my house and you get out of your car, check your phone, look at like my fence, my chain fence around just around my side door, and let's just say like there's some kind of 6-foot creature perched on it.
To like physically drop something. Oh god, I am so startled.
Yeah.
Like, especially a child.
Yep.
That's something that
it came out of you.
It's you will do everything in your power to not drop that.
Right. Yeah.
So that was I mean that's that, and after that story dropped, that's when everything started
And
getting
the child
really
dropped.
nuts. Yeah. Damn it! I literally walked right into that one. But that happened on November 16th. So every single event that I've talked about happened in the course of 3 days.
So
ostensibly.
So this town, Point Pleasant.
Yep.
I checked the town we're in right now. Because we record in Enfield, Connecticut.
Yep.
Oh, give it away.
We've said it before. It's not the first time. Any listeners know. So this town's population is 44,000. Right, just round.
And we're one of the biggest towns in the state.
Pretty much.
Yeah,
I
we're
think
pretty
we're the
solid.
second biggest town in the state.
Yeah,
I can't remember.
We're good size. 44,000.
Yep.
Point Pleasant, West Virginia, their population 4,000.
Yeah.
So that's there's your size. That's your.
Yep.
Okay.
Another big thing that with people who have had here's the thing too, is that these are considered to be the principal ones, because after these 4 reports go out, like newspapers get a hold of it, then it becomes like a big scare, and at that point it becomes this whole year of insanity where like there are hundreds of sightings being reported like daily. It becomes like a game almost, where things start getting so spiraling out of control, where people are now going out to the TNT area, like thousands of people at a time, going on search parties trying to find this thing.
Do you think it was? How much of that do you think was? Oh yeah, I totally saw it. It was
my uncle
crazy.
saw 2 of them.
Yeah, it could be bandwagon.
It had red eyes and it looked like a moth.
So one of the big things that was really big deal is that there are things that happen to people who would see Mothman. And not just being like, oh, like I got real nervous. A lot of people had experienced side effects like paranoia and anxiety and nightmares and insomnia And
because
insanity.
they just saw a Mothman.
Insanity. Like, two of the people that saw them, like, they literally were locked up in a penitentiary because of what they saw, which is, you don't really get that when you see an owl. You know what I mean? Like,
I have never seen an owl in the wild.
Yep.
I think that would startle me.
It would
just as much as a Mothman would,
for sure. but conjunctivitis, like people that came in close contact would get conjunctivitis,
really?
Like because of or radiation scars because of they attributed it to the red eyes as it were, like it became really nuts or feelings of premonitions, and that's actually goes down the line when things start getting really out of control, and like pending senses of doom. And then people were experiencing poltergeist activity, like throughout this entire town. Like city lights, stoplights would start going off and on, like in the middle of the day, at night, like everything, all this weird stuff would be happening. Phones would go off.
Well, isn't there an insect bite that makes you feel like you're experiencing doom?
Probably.
Yeah, there is.
Right.
I can't.
Heard about it?
It makes you feel like overwhelming existential dread or something like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, you can hear my voice. I'm just getting super into it, so like I'm getting really crazy. Yeah.
So what you're saying is Mothman carries these bugs that give you existential dread.
Quite possibly.
He infects you with
He just
it.
releases them onto you.
And also gives you pink eye, apparently.
Yeah. I mean, well, for some people, like if they were in close proximity,
the red eyes give pink eye.
He just sprays poop in your face.
But like, and it's like
that's where you get the conjunctivitis from.
Yeah, but those are like the crazier stories. But then that's when things start getting really nuts too, where so those 4 sightings start off, but then it slowly becomes more extraterrestrial in nature, where shortly after the Mothman sightings came up, UFO sightings and activity started going on the rise.
So, well, that was all over the area. Well, like the entire country at that time, wasn't it?
Yeah, for the most part, yeah.
When? All right.
It also, and actually it talks about this in the Mothman Prophecies film, Indrid Cold specifically. During this specific case, the Men in Black became very prominent at this specific point in time.
I was wrong. I typed in when did Roswell happen, and that was 1947.
Yeah, but it's still, it's not that far off, really, in the grand scheme of things, 20 years off. But one of the things about the Mothman in general is that everyone considered him to be like the precursor or the issue, like the harbinger of all this insanity and this chaos.
He was like the lead
happened.
scout.
Yeah, kind of. And it was really difficult because a lot of people like some of the notes. I have to switch over now because now that kind of was the precursor, and there would be other reports and sightings and stuff like that, and it became like a mania in this town, and so the one person in particular was named Mary Heyer. She was a reporter for the Athens Messenger and a manager of the offices in downtown Point Pleasant, and she managed a column called Where the Waters Mingle. And this is kind of where Mary would report on these sightings and have these one-on-one interviews with members of the town. And it's kind of the nature of the interviews are very like, I've lived in this city my entire life. I'm a God-fearing person. I've worked here. I've never seen anything like this. This happened to me here. This is exactly how it happened. I saw this, and this, and I don't know how to explain it. Can you help me? And Mary ended up becoming very ingratiated and very connected to the community. And the community kind of rallied around her as I can trust you. I don't trust talking to my friends because I don't want to be thought of as a
get put in the asylum.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to get put in the nut house.
Yeah.
So Mary became like a beacon for these people, and it actually comes up later on when UFO activity becomes a big thing, where it got so bad in the middle is that people be like, oh, it's Thursday, time to go out and see the purple lights in the sky tonight. Like people would literally just go out and hang out. Reports of like UFOs like near bodies of water with like extraterrestrial beings just kind of standing on them, just hanging out, almost like they're having a cigarette break. Like, and one of the things about is Indrid Cold, which I mentioned. He's also known as the Grinning Man, who makes an appearance. He's kind of like a more of a cryptid or like a paranormal entity that's really well known in the community. He has one of the biggest stories are tied to the Mothman, and like which is why in the film when Richard Gere he starts getting phone calls from people, Indrid Cold is the person that he's getting a phone call from.
Okay.
And it actually the actual story in the film where they go chapstick and he pulls out chapstick in his pocket where he's like, what do I have in my pocket right now? It says chapstick.
Yeah.
Pulls out chapstick. It wasn't chapstick.
Yeah.
It was a gold watch that he had lost that he didn't know where it was.
Huh.
And the voice told him where it was, and he checked, and it's exactly where it was.
Huh.
And so Richard Gere's character, I believe, was Dan Keel, was the actual reporter's name, who was a UFOologist, who kind of came down and worked with Mary on this case. And Ingrid Cold had an altercation with a man by the name of Derenberger. What was his name? Woodrow Derenberger. And this one is like a fantastic story. And once again, he's a tried and true, cut to the core, American, like traditional hardworking blue collar guy. He was a salesman. He was driving in from Ohio out of town on business late at night, and he's driving into Point Pleasant, just outside of town, and he's stopped by an object blocking the road. And it is a gigantic cylindrical silver object that is hovering 12 inches over the sky. This has been corroborated by different reports of other people in town that drove by this, being like, "Oh, Woodrow's he was driving by on the side of the road, and did you see that thing hiding in the store, like hiding on the ground and stuff?" And essentially, a person,
so
human,
he saw this thing and stopped, and people just drive by him, and thing.
Yep, and
They'd see this thing too, and just keep going.
Yeah, and this object opens up, and a being comes out, walks up to his car, and then starts talking to him. But he's not. He starts talking to him essentially and asking these questions. And he has olive complexion. He has no eyebrows, no eyelids. He's wearing a blue metallic coat, and he has a very fixed smile. And he does not blink. And he has this conversation with Woodrow in the middle of the road at like 8 o'clock at night. And the first words I believe he says is, "I'm not here to hurt you. What's that over there?" And he starts pointing to the lights and being like, "What are those lights over there?" And Woodrow goes, "Well, that's Point Pleasant. That's a town." And he goes, and he has a 10-minute conversation with him. Now, the thing is that he's having this conversation with this man who introduces himself as Indrid Cold through the window.
Yeah.
He's hearing it in his head, and he's not speaking. He's here, like, it's like he's talking to him, and it would be like if...
It's like talking to a Viltrumite in space.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's perfect. Yeah.
Professor Xing you.
So like, and he has this conversation, and like, and it's an unnatural looking smile, very curled, very weird. He has olive complexion, like I think I mentioned that before. But then he just goes, "It was nice talking to you, Woodrow. We will meet again." And then he walks into his ship and then walks away. And this was corroborated by other witnesses.
Walks in the ship and then what?
The ship drifts up and disappears. Yeah, and Woodrow just goes about his business, goes back into town, and he goes on public television to tell this story. And he gets visited by Indrid Cold number of times. Like, he visits him, and it becomes like a whole thing where Woodrow meets up with Mary, starts telling Mary these stories. She starts publishing these stories, and that's where we get into the Men in Black start showing up around town. These people wearing all black suits, driving cars that are pristine, perfectly made, but 20 years old. Like, it's almost like we're driving like a Studebaker that was fresh off the lot 10 years ago that shouldn't be in this good of a condition. And they're walking around asking people about questions about UFO sightings, about Mothman, and telling people to stop talking about these sightings. And it's really screwed up.
On last podcast on the left, they were doing a bit on the Men in Black.
Yep.
And I can't remember the terminology they came up with. It's an actual term, and I don't remember it. I wish I could remember it. But it was basically, it breaks down to the thing doesn't exist until you think about it, and you thinking about it is what turns it into a real thing.
Yeah.
So it's almost like it's a fae kind of deal, and like it doesn't assume a form until you believe in that form.
Yeah.
It's like Voldemort.
Yeah. Sure.
The more you talk about him, the stronger he gets.
Right.
So part of the thing is that like these people would believe like, oh, look out, or the Men in Black are going to come to get you. And it's like the Men in Black are that thing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, but that actually comes up a lot too. Where now it's kind of like, now that so much time has passed, like if you go to Point Pleasant now, they've kind of like embraced the legend a little bit. But there are still people in town that they will refuse to talk to you about it because they're afraid. They're afraid that if they talk about it, it's going to come back. Like that's like a whole thing. But the Indrid Cold thing, there's so much more like that's insane about this, and this is where I link it to a fun story that I really like. But essentially, Indrid Cold visits Woodrow numerous times, and his family, Woodrow's family, goes, "Yeah, we've met Indrid Cold. Like he came in, talked to our husband. Just walked to my husband, walked away.
That was going to be one of my questions. Like, are there any witnesses to this? Or?
Yeah. Described him perfectly. Just described, and he was like very like nice, but just like foreign. Like he was like he always had a smile, and he was just very off-putting, but he was never mean or crass. Like he's very inquisitive.
When I think of creepy smile, all I get is the Titans from Attack on Titan.
Yeah.
I don't want that approaching my car and saying hi to me.
That's actually a really good comparison. That's probably closer to what he would look like. But essentially,
no thanks.
So it gets up to a point where and now this is getting up to a point where Woodrow then disappears for 6 months and comes back. And like and his wife goes, where were you? He goes, Indrid took me to his home planet. And and you ask questions, and one of the quotes that is really like chilling about Indrid Cold is that in his conversation, Woodrow actually says this in a report that he gave to Mary, or he actually said this on television, because at this point they interviewed him put him on public access television, and put him up in front of like a town meeting in front of the entire town.
Of course,
he goes, Indrid Cold was on record telling him, "We eat, we sleep, we breathe, we bleed like you do," and like that's like one of like the classic like lines that like he said, he just said, and he's telling it like he's telling you how he how his workday went. He's just like, I just met Indrid Cold, took me up in a ship, we went to Lunaris.
Are these recordings still accessible?
I believe so. I'm pretty sure you can find them. At least the interviews that were on television for sure. But then shortly thereafter, that's when Men in Black show up, and there's actually a famous report where when he goes on television, Woodrow, he starts getting a lot of people like coming up to his house and like staking out his house, trying to see Indrid Cold. They want to see, they want to see if he's calling them out on his malarkey or whatever. And they never see Indrid Cold, but the Men in Black pull up to his house. And two people who were dressed up as they were hunters. They were just dressed up in the woods, waiting to shoot Indrid Cold essentially and like collect him or whatever they were going to do. They watch a truck pull up, and two men in black suits, black hats, the same description, walk up and walk into Woodrow's home, and Woodrow reacted very differently to the Men in Black. They kind of look similar, olive complexion, but they were much more aggressive in tone, being like, "What gives you the right to talk about this? You shouldn't talk about this. Stop talking about this." And it's really messed up. And then they leave, and as soon as Woodrow has that interaction with the Men in Black, he then starts getting very paranoid. He starts freaking out about this because now he's thinking that people are trying to, that these are not Indrid Cold. These guys are not nice. These guys are not friendly. I don't want this happening anymore. Like, people are calling my house all the time. And that's another thing. He starts getting poltergeist activity. You can tell, like, it's a lot. There's a lot of stuff happening in this thing. But essentially, he starts getting telepathic visions and messages from Indrid Cold. It starts getting migraines. And he goes to a therapist to get himself checked out, and he talks about it. Then the therapist gets a message from Indrid Cold, and then starts getting a migraine. And the guy goes, he spoke to me. I don't know how else to phrase it. and that's when stuff starts getting really weird. Where like there are also
it's not weird yet.
No, there's like so many different iterations. But I do all this setup because when I was taking my notes, as you can see, I've taken a lot of them, is that I was taking a timeline of the Grinning Man and Indrid Cold, because I was like, that sounds really spooky. And this happened around the same time where a sighting was happening. Indrid Cold was seen, a character like this person that fit this description was seen in New Jersey maybe a couple days previous than his first appearance in Point Pleasant. So that means he was moving southward for some reason. Who knows?
Okay.
And where he was spotted by two boys walking underneath the New Jersey Turnpike. They were just hanging out, and they just got back from the movies, and they saw him, and he was just looking out at the city with the lights, just kind of looking at it, just doing whatever. Then he turned and saw them and walked towards them, and they took off and ran. But then 2 weeks before that, do you guys remember when I lived on the Cape? And you guys were kind enough to have me Skype in?
All the time.
And all the technological glory. So one of my favorite stories about paranormal or extraterrestrial appearances happens in North Truro, Massachusetts, which is just outside Provincetown. And this happened in 1966. Where was it? In October 1st. So this happened about
right,
half a month before.
Right in spoopy season.
Yep, half a month before Indrid Cold was actually spotted in Point Pleasant, which was October 11th. So that means he technically, Darren Berger met Indrid Cold 2 weeks prior to the first Mothman sightings. So that's kind of like, it's like, even though I like Mothman, there's like all this other weird baggage attached to it.
Yeah.
But October 1st in 1966, North Truro. The big note about this experience is that this happened to a military member, an officer of the military, because there used to be a military base on the Cape. And it's been shut down. You can visit it. Like it's kind of like open to the public during the day and stuff like that. You just a bunch of barracks, nothing too crazy looking. But in October 1st of 1966, there was an airman that was abducted, and it was a classic case of lost time.
Okay.
And this recruit was dropped off at like a supermarket that's just outside the base, and there was a payphone, and he called up the payphone at 8:45. Was like, "Hey, I'm here," and they go, "Cool, we'll send a bus to pick you up." They send the bus to pick him up. Can't find him. Doesn't know where he is.
It's probably fine.
He goes, "All right, well, whatever." They drive back. They get another phone call at 9:45 going, "Hey, where are you guys coming to pick me up?" And they're like, "Yeah, we went to come pick you up and you weren't there." He goes, "No, I've been here the entire time." And they go, "All right, what's this nonsense?" And around this time, this also corroborates with, this actually happened outside Dutra's Market in North Truro, which I believe still exists. We drove by it when we were going up there. So I was like, super spooky. But it's kind of neat. Like, it's almost like, Indrid Cold was just taking a tour of the east coast of New England for some reason during that time, just going ever slowly.
See the leaves change.
Yeah, reverse leafers. Yeah,
Yep.
But that's like a whole thing where like he, because it happened to a member of the military. A lot of reports. There was a lot of.
Was he there the second time?
He was. Yeah, they went down to pick him up again, and he was there, and he was like, "Yeah, like you didn't see," and they had to like, allegedly they put him under hypnosis to try and like subconsciously get what happened. Yeah. And he described being abducted and being brought aboard an alien spacecraft and operated on. Like, that's the information that he gave, and that's like, and no one thought everyone's like, "I thought you just went to take a piss, dude." Like, what the heck? So yeah, so that's like a weird like, the Always Sunny in Philadelphia. That's me, like with my hand, like the
conspiracy.
That's me with like my hand on the part, just going, "Look, it's a conspiracy."
Pepe Silva.
Yeah, but it's just a fun like thing where I was like, "Wow, this event that is really close to my home happened around the same time that the Mothman occurrences were happening," and essentially I can go back to, now that we're back to Point Pleasant where all this madness is happening.
There was something I wanted to ask about, but
sure,
now I lost it.
Yeah, I know. I'm bouncing all over the place. I hope everyone's keeping track. I know I'm all over the place, but
yeah, there's going to be a quiz at the end of this.
Yeah, right. I'm almost done. Like this, it's the bulk of it though, where it's like, essentially, like things just kept getting more crazy. The reports kept getting crazier.
The Men in Black.
Yes, actually, I wanted to get back to that too. Yeah.
So the Men in Black. Since the movies, Will Smith, Tommy Lee Jones, and all those.
Yep.
When they were first like showing up, it wasn't just taken for granted that they were from the government.
Yeah.
Because like that's what I think current day we go to. It's like, Men in Black, they're FBI agents. They're from some agency from the government.
Yep.
But like originally, it was thought that like maybe they're not. And the Men in Black could be like, they could be aliens themselves.
Yep.
They could be some terrible organization. And it's like, they could threaten you and not suffer any consequences because they're a complete mystery. No one knows about them.
Yeah.
And so like right now, I feel like a lot of us at a point where like, no, they're just government. But like, maybe they weren't.
Yeah. Well,
how many times do you think we've been neuralized?
No idea.
The three of us.
But you actually make a great segue, because I wanted to go back to Mary Kyer. She had a multiple first-hand accounts with the Men in Black.
Which one was she?
She was the reporter for the newspaper, which is the
Stop Telling Them Stories.
Yeah, and the Athens Messenger. So Mary was kind of like the core person that was like taking all these stories, getting all these firsthand.
Does that make her Mercury?
Sure. Mary Hire, the Athens messenger, maybe. Where the waters mingle.
Who's the fast god? The messenger god. That was Mercury, right?
Yes.
Was that
I
Rome?
think so.
I'll shut
Yeah,
up.
maybe.
Never mind.
No, that's okay.
Anyway,
But one of the classics is that it's actually a very concrete experience, because Mary Kyer was visited. One of the most intense visits from the Men in Black happened at night. She was late at night. Security guard corroborated it, where the two men in black black coats, glasses,
right,
wearing hair, but it was described as like they had a hair, but it was like they're wearing a really bad bowl cut wig with like a hat on top of it, and olive complexion once again. And they just, something about them looked off. Like they had these big, gigantic, bulbous eyes behind like these wide rim, like black glasses and stuff like that. They were asking for Mary, and the security guard was like, "Yeah, she's right over there," and he just didn't give it a second thought.
Yeah.
They walk up to her, and they start harassing her, being like, what makes you think you have the right to publish these stories? You need to stop this right now. Stop talking about it. Stop it. And she started getting very, like, to a point where they were like, she was feeling very intimidated, so she went to call the security guard to come back me up.
Yeah.
And in the note of the correspondence, one of the two men, there was one tall, one small. The shorter gentleman grabs a pen off of her desk, looks at it like he has never seen a pen before, and then pastes a creepy smile over his face, and they both just walk right out. That's exactly like what the report of that story is. It was corroborated by two people. It was in a lit building at night. Like there were people. It happened in town, and then they just disappeared, nowhere to be found again. Like that was like a huge. And then actually, a lot of stories happen like that, where they just show up. Like another great Men in Black story that came up was there's a guy who in the 1930s or maybe 1920s who had a UFO zine that he would write about UFOs and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And he was visited by the Men in Black, and like he got so freaked out that he actually shut down the entire process. And he was like the manager of a thousand contact group of people all around the world talking about UFO sightings, discussing them. And how the story goes was that he was visited by these. He received a phone call by the. This is probably around like the 50s, I think, because it wasn't quite like the connect your phone call operator,
right.
Not operator phone, but
yeah.
still dial tone ring. He gets a phone call, and he gets a phone call. He's like, "Hello, this person's name. Can you receive a visitor?" He goes, "Yes, I can." And he hangs up on the phone. Then he goes to turn the light on, so that way, because he's expecting a visitor, and there's a car already parked at his house. This is the advent of cell phones. This is in the 60s or 50s, even prior.
Right.
Being like, how the heck did you call? There's no payphone around here.
Right.
The nearest payphone's like 20 miles down the road.
Yeah.
Comes up, two men, definitely make it a point to come inside the house. And allegedly, they start doing a lot of the same stuff, like, why are you doing this? What do you have? What do you know? Give us everything you have about what you're talking about. And allegedly, according to the account, as he mentioned in a bunch of notes that were recovered, one of the Men in Black puts a coin in his hand. He goes, "Look at that coin." And he looks at the coin, and the coin starts to reverberate, and almost like it's flickering out of existence, and then disappears. And the guy goes, "If you don't stop writing about this is going to happen to you." And at this point, he notes that one of the Men in Black that kind of are officiating this whole thing, he starts making buzzing noises, like zzz, and making noises like running low on energy. He says this, and the description on this one is that
I've heard this one before.
Yeah, where it's like. He kind of lets him in, and then he's like, he kind of has this weird complexion, and he has like these very bright red lips with this pale complexion, which is really weird. Yeah. And then I noticed that he has a red smear in his hand, and it's because he goes to move his mouth, and he realizes that the lips are painted on a slit, on like on a case.
Oh, because they don't have lips.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a whole thing.
Yeah.
And like so that story kind of goes away. And then you know that he kind of he's so terrified as any of us would be. I think if that happened to any of us, they just take off. He goes into hiding, and then a couple of his notes get described. But it's like that's type of level of insanity. And which sucks because like Mothman's really cool, and then we just went into this whole cavalcade of insanity. But essentially, what ended up happening is that all of this stuff kind of does like a rising action to December 15th, 1967, at the Point Pleasant Bridge in West Virginia, and the bridge collapses, and essentially, allegedly, Ingrid Cold or people were having visions of this happening, but. It's a lot of like he said, she said type of stuff where it's like, no, somebody told me this happened.
Right.
But it's the Silver Bridge, and 46 people died.
Right.
46 people in a town of 4,000 is a pretty size. It's a bigger fraction than most in other cities when compared to it. If you think about it, like it's like 4%.
Is that 1%?
Maybe
40 out of 4,000.
Yeah, 40. Yeah.
It's not 10%.
No, that's one. Yeah, that might be 1%, but still, I mean, like
On one night, yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So Enfield. So would that be like 400 people dying in one night?
I guess so. Yeah.
Can you imagine that?
That's a lot of people.
One night.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay.
I would be terrified.
And they were all members of the community too. So it's like these aren't just like unnamed people that were from out of town. These are people who run the shops.
What was the situation in the movie? They kind of made it seem like other routes were closed. Why were so many people on this one bridge?
They were trying to hype up
traffic jam or something.
Yeah.
Or...
Well, the thing is that it's the reason it's called the Mothman Prophecies is because it's based off of a book written by Dan Keel. I apologize if I'm messing up the first name, but his last name is Keel or Keen. Sorry. If you have the wiki, it might pop up, but the book is called Mothman Prophecies. Yeah. And it's because Keel, thank you.
Yes.
The Mothman did allegedly, or during this time, people were receiving messages in broken patterns from people, or from like broken voices on the phone and stuff like that, saying numbers. And one of the things that were predicted was like 40, like the number 46 and December 15th, and like just very cryptic messages. And then once when it would happen, another one that it was related to was a plane crash that happened in Denver, and where an eyewitness once again received a broken phone call for no good reason that said Denver 6, and there was a date involved with it too, but I don't remember. And on that day there was a plane crash and 6 people died. So like that's kind of where that whole prediction kind of came up. Yeah. Which is also why that same day when the bridge collapsed, a lot of people reported seeing Mothman on the side of the bridge. So a lot of people consider Mothman to be a lot of things, but a lot of people think he'd be a harbinger of death, right, or a sign of horrible times. Some people thought he could be like a devil or a demon, like there'd be angels, or like, well, how do you know what an angel look like unless you see one? Or maybe it's a devil. He's giving us information. Maybe he's trying to help us. He's trying to be a good guy, but whenever he shows up, people get screwed up and get conjunctivitis apparently, and drop their children.
In the movie, there was a thing where people would be getting like their phone calls, and they would hear this horrible screeching.
Yep.
And like it's days prior to the collapse.
Yes.
And then like, but once the collapse was happening, it was making the sound they would hear over the phone.
Yeah.
They would hear that was the sound of the metal tearing and like falling apart.
Yeah. I mean, there's like a whole bunch of reports that are like that all over the place. Like, and at one point during the height of the frenzy of this, there were about 1,000 people going out at night just trying to find Mothman. I think I mentioned that earlier, but there are hundreds of reports like at the peak. And as we all imagine, there's probably a tipping point. Like once when that major story hit and then everyone like got national attention, I'm sure there's a couple people that are like, oh, I saw him. But the thing is that there probably weren't as many just because of like the nature of these people. According to there's the Eyes of the Mothman I like a lot because it does interview a lot of the people that grew up. I mean, granted, a lot of the people were like 10, 11 at the time when this happened, but they still have recollections and talking about like how everyone was, terrified everyone was, and leading up to the bridge collapse, everyone was really scared. And the thing is that once the bridge collapsed, everything stopped. Nobody saw anything, and a lot of people attribute it to the severity of the realness of that tragedy. Kind of made everyone just snap out of like looking in the sky.
Hysteria.
We're taking care of people that are dear to us now. All that stuff doesn't matter. We're going to focus on ourselves. And a lot of people kind of attribute Mothman a lot. Some people think that because This took place at the TNT zone. Some people thought it was a mutated sandhill crane because it has big bright eyes, very tall, 5 feet tall normally with like a 7-foot wingspan. There's barn owls.
I mean, if something's flying in the sky, I don't have time to accurately measure it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's big.
Yep. And one of the other things that a lot of people attributed in their descriptions is that it had wings, but they didn't flap.
Right.
They flew without moving. So it was almost like a kite or like a gliding owl, which is a possibility. But once again, because of like the TNT and the chemicals, a lot of people were like, oh, it was a mutated animal. That's why it seemed so inquisitive and just didn't know how to operate around people, and it didn't talk, and it made screeching noises. That all makes sense, sort of. But then some people go, well, then why did all the doors in my house unlock all at once at the same time at 2:00? That a sandhill crane can't do that. And a lot of people think it was an extra dimensional rift, which is why it hasn't happened again. Because it's almost like a singularity event where it's like,
so the bridge collapsed and the rift closed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's like a proposed.
Hey, that's legitimate.
Yeah. It's a proposed explanation, which is also why you don't normally hear about that. Which is why you can't. Most people will go to see Mothman and they won't find him because that window shut or whatever.
All right. So wait, what's the deal with the creepy smile guy?
Yeah, Indrid Cold. There's like the whole story between that is that once when the Men in Black got involved, Indrid Cold sort of disappeared.
Okay.
But Woodrow Derenberger, I wish, had a happier story. I'm freaking myself out now. I'm looking around.
What are you looking at?
I don't know. I saw a flash, but it's probably a car driving by. But Indrid Cold specifically, Woodrow Derenberger.
Yeah.
He lost his job. He got divorced.
He was
people would not leave him alone. He was the guy that
was talking to.
Yeah,
okay.
he was Indrid's handler for a little while.
Okay, yeah, that fits. Yeah.
If that makes sense. And then the Men in Black showed up, and once when the Men in Black showed up, he got really scared, and he just got sick because he put his face on television. He told this story. Then the publicity came and really screwed everything up. Newspapers are, I'm going to put you on television. We're gonna make $1 million. Tell your story and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And it got up to a point where he was getting threatening phone calls from people that he didn't know.
Yeah.
Change his phone call. He would unplug his phone. Phone would still ring.
Whoa.
Change his phone number 4 or 5 times in a week.
Yeah.
Still getting the same phone calls. No idea how. Didn't give the phone number out. He would send mail out to people, to family members. They would never get it. He would put stuff out in the mail and then just wait the next morning, go out to it, be disappeared. No sight of the mailman at all. No sight of anyone. And then he just left town. He left town, he disappeared for a while. Nobody knows where he went, really. But then he kind of mysteriously came back, and he actually lived in Point Pleasant until I think he was in his 70s, I want to say. I think I had this written down somewhere. Come on.
Did he get better when he came back, at least?
It's kind of... I think he passed away alone. He kind of lived by himself. I think, when he came back, he tried to, sort of... do Mothman tours, Indrid Cold, kind of try to do something to make a living for himself. But the reports of him going on after that are kind of murky. The reports kind of die out. The records really kind of disappear.
It's not juicy anymore. So why pay attention?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And once again, once when the bridge collapsed, everyone kind of just left it alone. And especially with things getting that crazy, people really didn't want to talk about it anymore because they didn't want that crap coming back again. So Darren, the last story I've heard is that he went back to Point Pleasant, lived kind of a quiet private life as best as he could, and he passed away. I think it was 76. I think either in 76 or lived to be 76. I cannot remember, but he passed away. Sadly, not with his family.
So what we're getting at is that Indrid Cold and the Mothman are the same person. Obviously, right? That makes sense, right?
It's a very weird coincidence. Whether or not Indrid Cold
evidence would suggest
whether Indrid Cold was gravitated or drawn to the occurrences happening or foresaw these things happening.
Were they combating aliens like the Kree and the Skrulls?
I don't think so.
What?
I wouldn't say so. specifically, just because like nobody ever saw. None of the reports that I've seen or heard of or researched show that Indrid and the Mothman were in the same place. But they were definitely whatever was happening all at the same time throughout the town. And Mothman, even though Indrid Cold, like the experience with Indrid Cold happened 2 weeks before the first Mothman sighting, the Mothman sighting is really what kicked off the whole thing, because Woodrow Derenberger didn't really talk about this. He kind of sat on it for a little while until people started asking me, and like, it was like, oh, Woodrow, I saw you parked on the side of the car talking to somebody. What was that all about? And he's like, oh, I was talking to Indrid Cold. He was asked about the town and, asked how humans are.
Weird UFO person.
Yeah. And, and it's kind of like the reason why a lot of people find this compelling is because of the fact of the nature of the events, just the sordid, weird nature of it. And then just kind of like the natural acceptance and the nature of the people that this happened to and their stories. I mean, I'm sure there are a couple people that, their stories, it's like a tall tale. After you tell a story a long time, the 5 skateboards you jumped when you were a kid might have jumped up to 7 skateboards when you were 15, and then when you turned 20, maybe it was 17. Who knows? You're not sure.
It was a car.
Yeah, it was a car. Jumped on the hood of a car. But generally speaking, most of those reports, like they were substantiated. The police were involved. Public were involved. It was a very televised, publicized thing in a way where people were still out researching it as it was happening, and people were having, like, especially with the UFO activity was the big thing, because some people would see Mothman like, oh, I see it flying, or I heard it screaming because I was walking on the TNT with my loaded shotgun ready to shoot the thing so I could mount it on my wall. And when we heard it, or it chased us, or it chased somebody I knew down the street, and it got up to so broad where we were like I said, like, it's Thursday, time to go see the purple lights out on the fields, and people would just literally like picnic and just be like, wow, purple lights on the sky, orbs. I don't know what they are, but they're really beautiful. It's like silent fireworks. That's really neat. So that level of kind of like the eerie acceptance of the paranormal or the abnormal, it was very big, especially at the leading up point.
That kind of thing would happen like out towards Arizona or New Mexico or whatever.
Yeah.
Because their explanation was like, well, it's near an Air Force base, so they're probably doing tests of some kind.
Right.
But like the community would like go watch the lights in the sky. Like they might catch some, they might not.
Yep.
The real harsh skeptic in me wants to wonder, like, if this was just a real convenient series of lies.
Oh yeah, that's like, always on the table.
Hey man, who are you talking to? It's like, well, I don't want to say it was my gay lover, and I don't want to say it was a mob boss that I owe money to.
Right.
So it was a mysterious alien person.
Yeah. Or, well, we were smoking the dubage
classic
out.
scenario.
Yeah. Or it's like, we were smoking the dubage out in the forest, and like we just saw an owl, freaked us out, and we just don't know, and we just in our fear we just made this thing bigger than it actually is. It's very possible, but
how did this car show up in my driveway?
Yeah.
Well, radios were a thing.
Yeah, but it's also like that weird thing where it was, there's just a lot of like very weird specific recordings, and it's not to say that, I'm sure you know how it is, like for every one real legitimate thing there's always a couple after it, and whether that's generated through fear or or want of attention, or like the like a placebo effect type of thing, where if you're in a room full of people and 18 people just go, did you see that thing up in the corner? Did you see that? I just saw that thing in the corner. The guy goes, yeah, maybe I did see it in the corner. Everyone seems to be really passionate about this. Yeah, I think I saw it too. Yeah, I saw it.
I don't want to be left out.
Like the peer pressure type of thing could probably have been a factor, but that's why, like, those 4 major events that happened within 4 days of each other. I said 3 earlier. It was 4 because it was November 11th. No, might have been November 11th. I forget. Might have been November 12th. All I know is that if it was November 11th, that's awesome because that's that's my birthday. Yeah, so that would have been creepy.
You know what? So we have a plan now.
Yeah,
we gotta discover time travel.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. I'm with you.
We're gonna go back in time to when all these events, these crazy things happen. We gotta witness them.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's been a thing yet. When people say, "Oh, if you could time travel, where'd you go to?" and they go, "I want to see dinosaurs. I want to kill Hitler, whatever."
Yeah.
It's like, why don't you prove all this shit wrong or right? Look at your own Mothman.
Yeah.
Or go find Ingrid Cold and see if he's real or not.
Yep.
Go watch that first incident with the disappearing coin and the Men in Black that are creepy lip people.
Yeah.
But with us doing that
Mhm.
and having to keep secret,
Yeah.
would we talk about it?
I don't know if
Would
if
that make us the Men in Black?
right? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Terminator rules. Dang it.
So-
Who's your daddy? What does he do? I know I'm messing. I just made like 3 references all at once. But yeah,
Let's write a comic book about this. Let's make a movie about
Yeah.
us being the Men in Black and going back in time and
I'm down for
looking
it.
at these. Yeah, that'd be great.
Men in
Let's get on
Black.
it.
Men in Black 4. We can do that.
Pay us some money.
Oh, the first sighting was November 12th, so it was the day after my birthday. But not the year.
So
Not
Brett's
the year.
the Mothman.
Not the year.
Jesus.
Well,
It's a couple years early.
That's how we knew so much about it.
yeah.
How old do we know? I almost just said a sentence.
I thought
How do we know
Brett-
how old Brett is?
His beard is the wings.
Yeah.
Obviously, we did.
He's the Beardman.
I knew he could hit those high notes when he was singing karaoke, but I didn't know they would go that high. But
That's
no,
why Brett loved all the Moth memes
Yeah.
last month.
Well, it's also why I drew Mothman in my Inktober because it's my favorite cryptid.
Because it's you.
Yeah, but there's but actually I found the quote too.
Hashtag Brett is the
The
Mothman.
quote that started the whole thing that got Mothman his name was that there's Batman on my neighbor's roof. He flew up into the sky, and that was the absolute, just very casual. Just
Yeah.
there's Batman on my roof. Flew up into the sky.
You know, he was
Darndest
probably
thing.
hoping for a real cool name.
Yeah,
He got
right.
stuck with that.
I like Mothman though.
Yeah?
Like it's there's something to it that I don't know why. I think it's just it's the alliteration. The alliteration I'm a big stickler for. Mothman.
Yeah.
Rolls off the tongue.
Right.
It also like it because if you see moths, like you've seen moths, like they interact with things in a
I have
very
seen
odd
moths.
way.
Yeah.
Way. I like when they bounce off lights.
Right.
Now I'm just going full meme reference.
Lamp.
But yeah, but that's like one of my and once again, I didn't pull all my information from this, but a really good comprehensive documentary if you really want to get like a full comprehensive rundown, more detailed of what I've been talking about. Eyes of the Mothman, a splendid documentary.
Check it out.
Yeah, it's a really I think it's like 2.5 hours, might be almost 3 for a documentary. It's pretty intense, but it's really enjoyable. And actually, people have gone back to Point Pleasant. BuzzFeed, I think, did like they have like a cryptid search, kind of like Destination Truth kind of kind of thing.
Look, there's a statue made and everything.
There is, and I don't like the statue because it doesn't look like how it's been depicted by,
Kinda like a
by
butterfly.
witnesses. It looks like a kaiju. Like
Does
it
it?
look,
Let me
yeah,
look
it
at
looks
this,
like it looks like Mecha Mothra. If they made a Mecha Mothra, that's exactly what that statue would look like. And he has a butt.
Where'd it go?
They gave him a butt. Like he has these really
Well,
steely
where
butt
else
cheeks.
would he,
I know. Hey,
He's a
Biolo-
man at the end of the day.
at least they attributed biological accuracy to him.
Make this
Do
picture
moths have
bigger.
anuses? I don't know.
I don't know.
They
I
might.
guess that's for another episode.
I
Yeah,
guess so.
he does look kind of weird.
Yeah.
I mean, it's creepy. It's scary.
Yeah, but it's very atypical of what the reports on how he actually
this
looked.
is
look.
bad. No, I hate this. Look at that face.
Yeah,
He doesn't even have eyes.
yeah.
It's just a weird.
Well, the eyes
Looks
are on
like
the
a
side.
bird.
The eyes are on the side. You can't see them because of the angles.
These black things?
No. On
There?
those sides, and they're ruby. They're made out of like a ruby
Oh.
or a red crystal or something.
That doesn't sound right.
Yeah, because once again, because we're looking at.
He also
we're look-
shouldn't have a neck.
yeah. Well, also in the reports, if you're looking at the Mothman head on,
yeah.
the eyes would look right at you,
Right.
which is not
These are off to
accurate.
the side,
Exactly.
like a fish.
Yeah. And so that means, and that was actually another big thing, which kind of ruled out a lot of things of people saying it was a sandhill crane, because sandhill cranes have eyes on the side. So if
Yeah.
you see a sandhill crane, you're not seeing both eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Although with owls were actually,
Oh yeah, they're right in front.
yeah, and actually if you hit them with specific lights, their eyes shine red, which a lot of people would be like, yeah, it was just a gigantic owl. But once again, who's ever seen
CBS
it?
has a thing you can reduce that,
Yeah,
the red eye
true.
in your photos.
Yep. Can they reduce conjunctivitis though? That's the big selling point for
Can
me.
they
That's to
reduce
make it or break
radiation
it.
burns?
My joke is for people our age,
Yeah.
because back in the day you used to have to get your photos developed.
Mm-hmm.
You would take a picture and go, "Hope that was good."
Yeah. Yep.
Let me use my red eye reduction. That was a
Yep.
special thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Pay extra for it.
Yep.
Get that matte finish. That's what's up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I don't like this.
Yeah. It's not.
It's a bad statue. It's a bad
Yeah.
statue.
Yeah.
I would have loved it if it was like closer to like the. But although the argument against that though, the first-hand sketches of Mothman, they're not.
They're not really good.
That looks cool,
Yeah.
and it's a lot more visually interesting than the gigantic big blob
Right.
that it's normally drawn as.
Yeah.
So
like-
I can argue my own criticism.
It's like when you see like a merman,
Yeah.
but like the top half is a fish. It's probably more accurate. It's most likely what
Yeah.
it would be.
Manatee. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah.
But
thanks for.
It's like, does it look more like a
Because
moth or more like a man?
The bottom half is legs. Is that
Yeah.
what?
Do you ever see that Family Guy?
I have.
Yeah. I thought it was Futurama.
How does he swim like
Family
that?
Guy.
Oh.
Well, how, else
Oh,
would
right.
how else would we make love? I was
Yeah.
kind of hoping for something else. But it's like a moth. Like, is the Mothman mostly moth and some man, or is he mostly man and some moth? Because like the statue's like mostly man and some moth.
Yeah, he is described as a humanoid creature. So like people say that he does have arms and legs and very angular, not animalistic in any way. It's just the wings. The wings are kind of like the big,
Like
the
that
big
of a
defining
moth.
factor.
Do they fold up?
They
Or is always kind of like draped there?
they
We're asking the
No, they're-
hard hitting questions.
no, they're
now.
kind of illustrated. They're always illustrated as being like hunched up, unless like the way I drew them in my Inktober sketch, I did lean into the moth aspect of it. The wings do come up in an arch in most of the depictions of him. Like the wings pop up more. But yeah,
Brett.
yes.
Thanks for talking about Mothman.
No, thanks for letting me like spew my guts out about this. Goodness
I'm
gracious.
fascinated by the amount of
Acid
Mothman
bodacious.
knowledge that you know. Did you do it?
You didn't.
It was a lot of fun. It was spoopy. I'm gonna have
Good.
trouble driving home tonight.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't have to drive anywhere. I'm just gonna stay here.
Yeah, you get to stay in your old creaky house
Yeah.
by yourself.
It might have ghosts in it. Who
Actually,
knows?
a parting thought is the fact that, like, while most people say that you cannot find Mothman, I forgot we said this when we were in our warm up,
Uh-huh.
but
Does he find you?
there are reports of Mothman, and take this as you may, but there have been a lot of recent reports of Mothman before big tragedies.
Uh-huh.
Allegedly, there were reports of a bridge collapse on I-35 Mississippi River Bridge in 2007. 13 died, 145 people were injured, and there were eyewitness reports of the Mothman. I think there were a couple photos, but I have not come across any of them. Also, there was an alleged series of sightings in Chicago of a Mothman or humanoid flying creature in 2017. 55 eyewitness reports of a winged humanoid. And that happened between April 7th and July 29th. And I don't know if any massive...
If there was a catastrophe. Or
Yeah, I don't know if anything has happened in Chicago that has warranted those appearances, so who knows? But the most another one that's kind of like eerie is that there were reports of sightings of Mothman after the Fukushima tidal wave in 2011 before the nuclear power plant disaster that happened shortly thereafter. And yeah, so who knows? There's reports, and it's also one of those things where some people claim that it's the spirit or it is a harbinger of whatever natural energies of the world. So, yeah,
Scary stuff.
yeah, just because I don't feel like giving everyone closure. Leave
Yeah,
that
right?
leave
Yeah,
that
let's
open
leave
ended.
this open-ended and terrifying.
Yeah.
So the possibility of great death opens the rift to that dimension,
Possibly.
and he comes to check it out.
Yeah.
And be like, oh yeah, you gonna die. And it
Yeah.
just goes back.
Or warrants. Yeah.
Yeah. Y'all gonna die.
Sorry.
Look out, dude.
Okay,
Later.
bye.
Yeah.
Sorry about my red eyes giving you cancer.
It's conjunctivitis, but no, but it's true. Like,
Same thing.
but radiation, like levels of radiation burns, which is weird.
Radiation gives cancer, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's true. Darn. Yeah. So, all right. I think I've convoluted this.
The
setting
Mothman.
enough. Yeah.
Alex,
That's the Mothman.
what have we been listening to
Oh,
this
Yep.
this whole time?
yep.
Got some spoopy music.
Put my glasses back on.
Put your glasses on. I had mine off. for most of the episode.
I found dark ambience,
Dark Ambiance.
horror background music, and it's from the YouTube channel 10 Hours of Everything.
Nice. This, for the record, this is 10 hours long. We are 1 hour and 35 minutes into this.
This was published
Wow, we went an hour and a half?
October
Jeez.
15th.
1 hour and
of last
13,
year.
excuse me.
That's
I
okay.
cannot read.
No, that's fine.
1 hour
Not you.
and 14 minutes now.
Mm-hmm.
So we only got 8 hours and 45 minutes to go. What do you guys want to talk about
Yeah.
next?
There's dark wave music for 10 hours, cheerful music for 10 hours.
Oh, sweet. Cheerful wave?
Cheer wave.
Country guitar music, yes.
We don't need to hear that.
Ooh.
It's a lot of 10-hour things.
Yeah.
Amazing jazz, right.
Things you never knew you needed 10 hours of until you
Yeah, right?
opened a haunted house
Yeah.
and you realized you needed it.
Yeah. I've actually been enjoying I miss talking haunted stuff. I've been meaning to try and do like
You
more
gotta
spook-
get that release.
Yeah.
Well, Brett had asked, I think last year, Because Brett would hit me with like, I want to do a spoopy episode.
Yeah.
And I was like, we're
booked.
I managed to book us for the whole month.
And you had Milta on, and that was the best decision ever. And I'm glad
That
that,
was
I wasn't
2
on.
years ago.
I
Was
have
it
a
2 years
picture.
ago?
I have a
Oh,
picture
boy.
to publish
Yeah.
because Milta went to go to Evidence of Evil. They have they have a haunt this year. Last year they were doing their creepy escape room.
Nice.
And they have a full house at Crystal Bees now. And Milta went to it, and she was saying like because Kyle went, and I think he brought a Jesse with him, and Milta's like, I wanted to go to these things, like because she's not working with us anymore.
Yeah.
She wants to experience all the ones she can.
For sure.
And I was like, when you go, you find Bobby and Dave, and you tell them that me and Kyle sent you. And they'll treat you right because they're good guys.
Good.
We had it. So now she took a picture with Bobby.
Yeah.
He's like reaching to strangle Booger. It's great. And so I want to share that. It was like
Little does he know,
2 episodes.
Booger strangles you.
Booger could take him out real easy.
Oh yeah.
No contest. So I want to reshare that because we'll have two guests, unrelated.
Meeting.
Sure.
Worlds colliding.
Exactly. Yes.
That'd be
That's what I
awesome.
was going for. Worlds collide.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I like talking about scaring, but having Milta Milta talking about scaring is far better price value than my talking about scaring.
Like she just has it so broken down.
Yeah.
It was kind of magical.
It was a lot of fun.
And I was trying to pass that on to some of the new kids. They
Yeah.
weren't really getting it.
No.
You got to go through steps 1 through 10 first.
Guess I'll have to show him this weekend.
Yeah.
Throw
Watch-
my
watch
back
the
out,
master.
drag me to safety.
I wish you best of luck, Brett.
Thank you. And once again, thank you
you're
for
my
letting
brother.
me rant. Hopefully,
Obviously, I will always put a microphone in front of your face.
I hope I don't come off as an entirely total lunatic. We'll see, because I
No.
got
we
really
just talked
passionate.
about a Mothman.
Not for this.
Okay,
No.
good.
I mean, maybe, but not this.
Yeah.
No.
Richard Gere.
Yeah.
So
I had nowhere else to go. It's
it's a lot of fun.
Full circle.
I hope you, in the nicest way possible, I hope you don't have a voice on Monday.
Thank you.
That means a lot.
Man. Thank you. Oh, man.
You're so nice. Alex, I hope maybe you get some scaring time in. Maybe.
I haven't fully decided yet, to be honest. But
Alex, he's got some big boy stuff to take care
Want to do a
of.
family reunion?
Oh, dear.
do I have to find a new sister?
Yeah, I might need
I'll
a
be
Jill.
your sister.
Jack,
What
Jill,
was
Grandpa.
what was Missa? Was she Jane or Jill?
Oh,
She was
we're
Jill.
going off the
Jill,
rails
Jack
here,
and Jill Ripper.
talking about scaring
Ripper
stuff.
family.
Because I would call her Jane.
Yeah,
And then
that's
she'd say, it's Jill, Grandpa.
Yeah.
And I'd call you Jake or anything else besides
like,
Jack.
you two should go out. And it's like, we're brother and sister, Grandpa.
And
It's great.
we both had the same incest joke.
Uh,
All right.
Yep.
That's going to do it, I think.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, we did the Mothman.
How many times did you get shivers while Brett was talking?
Like
I got-
7 or 8.
I did about 3.
Yeah.
Nice.
I
Yeah.
don't like scary things. And then when I picture myself in those situations, no thank you.
yeah.
Any listeners who hit this episode, hit us in the comments. Just leave a number. Tell us how many times you got some shivers.
Yeah. Let us know how many shivers you got.
You know,
Sweet.
Just leave a number.
Up the spine.
Yeah.
And
If
tell
you-
us
if
how
you
many.
comment anything, just let it be that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, just leave it at that. I'm not going to add my stupid thing.
Yeah, that's fine.
That was fun. Brett,
Yeah, thank
you're
you.
the man.
Man,
This
you
guy,
are.
This guy right over here. Brett Kelley.
Pleasure's always, John.
What's your Instagram handle? The Art Merc? No.
Where can we find your Inktober stuff if
Oh,
you want to
sure.
go look at some Mothman pictures?
Hey, yeah, I'm 2 days behind, but I'm
And
going to catch up.
The rest of your
Hey,
Inkstobers.
man, everyone
Yeah.
else is behind.
At BK Art Merc, which is Art Mercenary for short. BK
Art Merc. ARTMER. We were doing it and I did it over you. I'm such an idiot.
No, it's okay.
You
They'll get
do
it in
your
surround.
thing.
They'll get it in surround sound. That's fine. BKARTMERC. Art Merc.
Go follow him on the grams.
Yep.
Double tap those pictures.
I'm not gonna lie. I've actually been like my Inktober this year. I've been
It's prime time.
I never give myself praise for my work. This year I really one up myself from last year's
It
show.
has been pretty strong.
I've been
Yep.
very happy
Yeah.
with my work this year. Knock on wood. I can't wait to hate it in 6 months and then hopefully outdo myself.
Look for my suggestion,
Yeah,
which was Snackrifice.
I love that
Thank
one.
you.
That one came
Thank
out
you
real
very
nice.
much.
The fact, actually, I think a lot of people don't know is that the way people be like, Brett, why did you do all these weird words? These aren't Jake Parker's words because Inktober is a product of the wonderful, illustrious Jake Parker. It's a annual tradition that I've been doing the last couple years, maybe 3, where I ask all my friends that are on my Facebook page or Instagram to give me 1-word suggestions, Generally,
Just one word.
just most of the time everyone follows it. And I put them all in a hat. Take them all, like print them out, and I put them like little strips,
Yeah.
lottery style. Put them in a hat, swirl the hat around,
Yeah.
pick them at random.
Huh.
And I got some weird ones this year. The first word that somebody suggested,
Yeah.
anti-disestablishmentarianism.
Okay.
And
that's
it's
fantastic.
Brilliant.
It's day 20. It's like it's coming. It got picked. I had like
Can't
60. I had like 60 suggestions. Oh, I have some good ideas for it. Believe it or not, I kind of like those. Like, and because I was talking to somebody. And they were like, "Hey, like, where'd you get these words?" I was like, "I didn't know. That's a weird one to pick." I'm like, "Well, I picked it at random, so if you think they're weird, you can thank my friends and family and fans."
So we know who to punch.
No.
Wow.
They've been really good, and I like the weird ones, like the poop deck. Poop deck's gonna be real fun.
It's funny.
It's gonna be good. I'm
I
looking forward.
already
to it.
like that one.
Yeah. Actually, the thing that's been helping me is that I've been like, I'm gonna make every single Inktober one look like it could be on a shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's almost like any Inktober design could ostensibly be on a shirt.
Nice.
Then I drew Rick from Rick and Morty because I don't know why.
Why not?
Yeah, Prompt was maniacal, and I was watching a lot of Rick and Morty, so I was like, yeah, he's a good laugh. I'm gonna do this. Boom, done.
Done.
Yeah.
I like the way you think.
Stay tuned. There might
done.
be something special after that.
Yeah, go look at the grams.
Yeah.
Go look at all the art grams.
hmm
Opinions may vary, all one word, on Instagram if you want to follow us.
Please do. They
All
post
this-
some. They post some choice memeage.
Some choice bits,
Yep.
choice cuts,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, hope you all liked it.
Sweet.
Spoopiness will continue.
Have we broken the record for the longest wind down of an episode?
Oh,
yet?
longest
We're
outro.
getting there.
Yeah.
We're getting there.
All right.
We're getting there if we haven't already. But
All right. Give yourself a pat on the back if you made it with us this long.
the spoopiness will continue next week.
Oh, I cannot wait.
Surprise.
Yes.
We're doing a fifth one
What?
Yes.
because we could do just the 4.
But
But
why?
but Halloween's on a Wednesday.
Yep.
It's a brand new week.
Yep.
That twofer.
Let's finish strong.
Let's do it.
So there it is.
Let's
first,
get it poppin'.
You're the first to hear about it.
I'm honored and excited.
It's gonna be fun. Brett, thanks again.
Thank you.
You're my best friend.
You are.
That's gonna do it, I guess.
Yeah.
Right? I don't got anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
got that.
until next week, when the spoopiness, the conclusion for 2018, I have been JR,
I'm Alex.
And I am Brett Kelley.
and this has been episode 345 of Opinions May Vary.